June 2003. Deep in a remote area of central Ireland, workers were clearing a peat bog when they noticed something terrifying sticking out of the mud. 2 human arms. Shocked by the discovery, they immediately contacted police, and investigators feared they were dealing with a recent murder. When the remains were recovered, only the torso, chest, stomach, and arms were present. The head and lower body were missing completely. Even stranger, the skin had turned dark and felt almost like leather. The remains were sent to a laboratory for examination. At first, fingerprints and skin details suggested the body had been dead for only a few days. But scientists quickly realized something wasn't adding up. Samples were taken for radiocarbon dating, and the results stunned everyone. The body wasn't 4 days old. It wasn't 4 years old. It wasn't even 40 years old. It was approximately 2,400 years old. But how could a body survive for more than 2 millennia? Who was this mysterious man who once played an important role in ancient Ireland? Why was he killed? And what had he eaten before his death? Welcome back to another fascinating story. News of the discovery spread across Ireland, but this was only the beginning. Veteran pathologist Richard Shepherd, with over 20 years of experience, examined the remains and concluded that this man had not died naturally. He had been violently executed. Evidence showed that his head and lower body had been intentionally removed after death. The body contained clues that could reveal how people lived during the Iron Age. But the biggest mystery remained: who was he? Researchers gave the remains a temporary name, Croghan Man, named after Croghan Hill, the sacred area near where the body was found. That location itself was a huge clue. Around 2,400 years ago, Croghan Hill was an important ceremonial center of ancient Irish kingdoms. In those days, Ireland was divided into many small kingdoms, each ruled by its own king. New rulers were crowned on sacred hills just like this one. If Croghan Man had connections to these ancient kingdoms, what role had he played? Because Iron Age Irish people left behind very few written records, experts had to rely entirely on modern forensic science. The first thing they estimated was his height. His arms and hands were unusually large. During the Iron Age, the average Irish male stood around 5.5 feet tall. Croghan Man, however, was estimated to be 6 feet 6 inches tall. He would have appeared enormous compared to everyone around him. Strong, muscular, broad-chested, and impossible to ignore. At first, researchers considered whether he had been a warrior, farmer, or laborer. But the evidence told a different story. His fingernails were neatly trimmed and surprisingly well cared for. There were no signs of heavy manual work on his hands. That meant he had probably never worked as a laborer. In that period, only people from the upper classes enjoyed such privileges. Another important clue came from his left arm. Before his death, he had worn an armband made from leather and decorated with bronze fittings. Historians believe such items were reserved for people of high status. Some researchers even connected the ornament to sun worship, suggesting he may have been a religious figure or spiritual leader. By now, investigators had built a profile. Tall, powerful, wealthy, highly respected, possibly even a king. But why had someone like this been killed? The answer partly lays in the bog itself. Peat bogs create a unique environment. Layers of water and decaying plants produce acidic conditions that preserve bodies naturally. Instead of decomposing, the skin hardens and protects the tissues underneath. Much like mummies. Unlike Egyptian mummies, which were intentionally preserved, bog bodies become mummified naturally. That means every wound remains frozen in time. And Croghan Man had several. Both of his upper arms contained strange holes. Inside them, experts discovered tiny fragments of wood. Researchers believe ropes fastened to wooden rods had been driven through his arms to restrain him before death. Painful, yes, but not fatal. Perhaps they were meant to keep this giant man under control. Then investigators noticed another horrifying detail. A deep wound around the neck showed that he had likely been forced to kneel with his head bent forward before a powerful blow was delivered from behind. This looked like a planned execution, not a battlefield injury. But one particular injury puzzled everyone. His left nipple had been deliberately cut off. Why would anyone do that? At the time, nobody knew. Then another discovery changed everything. Later that same year, another body was found in a different Irish bog nearby. Experts named him Croghan Man. Remarkably, he had died during the same era as Croghan Man. Both bodies were preserved. Both lived at the same time. Both were found relatively close together. Both were missing their lower bodies, and both had their left nipples removed. Investigators began to suspect the same group, or the same tradition, was responsible. The answer finally came from ancient writings recorded centuries later by St. Patrick's followers. According to these texts, nipples carried symbolic importance for Irish kings. Removing them represented the loss of royal authority. In other words, Croghan Man and Croghan Man may not have been ordinary people at all. They may have been kings, but why were two rulers executed around the same time? The answer was hidden in the bog itself. Peat bogs build up layer by layer over thousands of years, preserving pollen and plant remains from each era like a natural time capsule. Scientists collected samples from the layers corresponding to 2,400 years ago. Under microscopes, they discovered evidence of unusually cold and wet conditions. Instead of crop pollen, they mostly found traces of wild plants. The harvest had failed. People were likely starving. Ancient societies often believed the king was responsible for the prosperity of the land. If crops failed and suffering spread, rulers were blamed. Researchers believe desperate people may have sacrificed their kings and chosen new ones, hoping to restore balance. Removing the nipples ensured that, symbolically, the former ruler could never reign again. But did Croghan Man know what was about to happen? The answer was hidden inside his stomach. Scientists found traces of bread and butter consumed shortly before death. However, material trapped beneath his fingernails revealed that for weeks beforehand, he had mainly eaten meat, a diet associated with privilege. This suggested that he had recently lost his royal status and had been reduced to simpler food. Some experts believe he may have known his fate in advance. Perhaps he resisted. Perhaps that was why he had been restrained. Croghan Man and Croghan Man were likely unfortunate rulers whose reigns coincided with a period of climate change, crop failures, and widespread suffering. And in the desperate hope of saving their people, they were removed from power and sacrificed. More than 2,400 years later, their bodies still tell the story. You enjoyed this story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next fascinating mystery.